All right, so it's about time to start today's webinar. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Webinar Wednesday. My name is Franklin. I'm the Product App Specialist for Kits and your webinar host. So this is the place you need to be every Wednesday to learn those tips and tricks you need to know to becoming that supercharged power user. All right, so if you have any questions, you can submit them in the chat box that's going to be located just to the GoToWebinar panel on the right-hand side of your screen. And what we'll do is we'll take a few minutes at the end of the webinar to answer them. If you take a look at the chat box, let me just send this link. There we go. You can see this is a survey link that we released a few weeks ago. Please click on the link. You don't have to do the survey right now, but do take the time to go through it if you haven't already, okay? It's quite quick and extremely helpful for your Kits team. So we really do look to improve Kits in the next coming months, and this survey will definitely help us understand what our users are looking for. And then just as a reminder, our next free training webinar is this Thursday, is April 12th. At 3 p.m. So be sure to attend if you're new to Kits or like a quick review. Let your colleagues know as well. They can easily sign up. All you have to do is go to the Kits Knowledge Center and click on the resource tab to register for all our webinars. Also look out, Julia will be sending out a registration link via email. You can also register that way as well. Okay, so today, this is what we're going to be covering. We're going to be looking to use the environment photos feature, and what we're going to do is we're going to look at all the different ways you can utilize this feature for your projects. We're going to look at how you can use some of the sample environments that we currently have in Kits. I'm also going to take you through the process in taking a photo and also understanding the 5 steps to Photo Bliss. Then we're also going to show you how you can access previous projects that were created with the feature in mind. All right. So with that being said, let's take a look quickly at the 5 steps to Photo Bliss. So the first step is understanding and analyzing your client space. So this really works with all respects of the feature that you can use. So basically, even if you're using the sample feature or the sample environment, the photo feature, as well as the past projects, the idea is that what you want to do is you want to understand how you're going to fit the layout that you've just created in Kits in the client space. Okay, so that's really important. Now, even if you're using the sample feature, what you should understand here, or what you should take away, is understanding that the client may not really understand what the layout is going to look like without having to see the context of some type of building, right? We kind of understand things once we sort of have a scale to refer to, and sometimes walls can definitely provide us that feature. So if you want something quick, then you can definitely use the sample environments, and that's something that you want to also keep in mind, okay? So just remember, analyzing the space, making sure that the layout fits within that space. Then you also want to include, some of your photography basics. How is the lighting? Are there obstructions in the way? Do I need to remove anything that's loose? These are all important things to really help you create a really dynamic picture, all right? Then you can also do some image editing. So this is actually going to be more towards the environment photos, so using the augmented reality feature. And we'll take a look at what some of those editing features are. You can also scale the image accordingly. Now, you don't necessarily have to be in any specific photo feature. You can actually scale any environment, even our sample environments. The idea is that you want to make sure that the furniture comes into scale into the space that you're currently using, okay? And then lastly, what you want to do is you want to adjust the layout, and I have a few tips for you to understand on how to properly adjust your layouts. All right, so with that being said, let's go and open up Kits. And what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open a first project. And what I have here is a nice classroom feature that, or a training room feature that I created a few weeks ago. You can see it here. We got some training tables as well as an instructor table. All right. Well, what I want to do at this moment is I want to actually use one of the environments, sample environments that we have in kits in order for my client to see what this space looks like within the context of a building, right? Now, remember, using the augmented reality photo feature is not going to work for all your projects. So what you need to understand is what is going to actually work for me and how or what's most important for me to actually communicating to my client. Okay, so again, understanding what the scale would look like for a training room is such as this that we've created and putting in the context of a building may be something that you want to show your client. So you want to take advantage of adding the walls without having to create the office space. This is the quick way to do it. All right. So at first glance, I can see here that I have about 8 training tables. If I go into my projects cogwheel, I can see here that I have a space that's been created roughly about 30 feet by 40 feet. Okay, so this is kind of telling me some information. You know, when we created this project, maybe this was part of the project scope. So I want to make sure that the space that I use is going to be able to encompass basically a 30-foot by 40-foot training room. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and tap on HD Render, and then I'm going to go ahead and tap on Include Environment. You can see here I have quite a few things that I've already been testing. So let's go ahead and tap on the samples folder below. So here we can see that we have a few environments you can select from. Again, the idea is that, you know, we kind of understand that we're working with quite a large space here, a little bit larger for 8 training tables. But what I want to do is I want to utilize a sample photo that best reflects what my client's space is going to look like. Doesn't have to be exactly what it is, but you know, if it's an office building, then you want to make sure that the sample photo that you use is reflective of an office building. Or if it's more classroom style, you might want to take a look and do something like that. Loft style, you can see we have all these different options to choose from. All you have to do is select what works best for you. Okay. All right, so first off, we're going to try this 2,500 square foot tower space. Now I can see what it looks like. That kind of looks like a training space for me. So I'm going to go ahead and tap on Use. Okay, and this is without doing any kind of scaling at all. So you can see that it looks like this is actually a perfect fit for my space. Even has a nice whiteboard at the end of the space. These are all things that will definitely jive with my clients and really help me with selling this feature. Okay. Now, one thing that I want to do first, and what I'm doing is I'm going to go into Plan View, and I'm going to go ahead and double tap on Select, so I can do a Select All. I'm going to group all my items together, and then I'm going to place this roughly along the border of the grid, and also giving me enough space. We're giving that instructor about 3 feet, so let's give him a little bit more. Let's give him about a 4-foot space there. Okay. Let's go back to the photo view. And since all my items are highlighted, I'm going to go ahead and tap on Remove. Okay, so I've actually deleted my furniture from the space because what I want to do is I want to align my floor grid. I want to align this line here against the wall line that we have back here. Okay, so I'm going to use my camera rotate to adjust the floor grid, and then I'm going to line it up. And once I'm satisfied with the position of the floor grid, see, I need to tweak that just a little bit more. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and tap on Undo. Okay, and you can see what that has done is it's brought my furniture back into the space. Then I can adjust it according to how I want to display it to my client. And once I'm satisfied with the picture, I can go ahead, turn off my floor grid just to see what that looks like, and there you go. All right, let's go ahead and take a quick rendering of that. All right, and depending on the photo and depending on the intricacy of the layout that you've created, will determine the actual rendering time. But there's my first rendering option. That looks pretty darn good to me. Like I understand that I've cut off some of the tables here, but again, remember what we're trying to do is we're trying to sell the client on the idea of the layout and what the space is going to look like. They can easily determine that this is enough space that's been provided for this training area. So let's go ahead and save that to the photo library, and there we go. All right. Now, if I needed to actually scale, that may actually augment the scaling of the actual furniture in the space as well. So let's scale this, okay? So we're going to scale the same image. This time what I'm actually going to say is that the windows here that seem to be floor to ceiling height, well, they fall just below this bulkhead. We're going to say that that's roughly about a 10-foot expanse. So from under the bulkhead to the actual finished floor. All right. So I'm going to go back into my HD render, include environment. We're going to select that environment again. This time I'm going to go calibrate, and I'm going to align it roughly about where the floor and the window meet. Okay. You don't necessarily have to place your finger on the 3D measuring tape to move it. I'm actually placing my finger around here, and then I'm dragging, and you can see I can actually position it quite easily. Then I'm going to use my rotate feature, and I'm going to rotate that 3D measuring tape so it follows that same perspective line. Okay. Now under size of object, I want to search for 10 feet. There we go. Now I can see here that it doesn't necessarily hit below the actual bulkhead. So I'm going to use the scaler here, and I'm going to scale it appropriately so that it now hits just below that bulkhead. Okay. So at this moment, what I'm actually telling kits is that from this point to this point equals 10 feet. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and tap on done. And then let's bring in the furniture again. And you can see what it's actually done is it's really scaled the furniture to fit the scale that we've just created. I can go turn on my floor grid again, double tap on select, let's remove, and let's set the perspective properly. I can already tell you that this is probably too small of a space for what we've just created. As you can see here, that it's quite large, but the idea again is being able to see the actual furniture to scale. Okay, we can render that, or you can see we have different options in terms of that particular space, where we have a 2,500 square foot space, I believe a 5,000 square foot space. You might want to use the one that may communicate your image best. All right, so those are the things that you'll have to sort of understand. And also, as I mentioned before, prior to going through this process, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you analyze the space accordingly. All right, and just to show you quickly here, again, we could have used the larger space, 5,000 square feet. And even though I haven't scaled this yet, you can see that it's easy to allow the furniture to fit. Okay, so it's just a matter of understanding what you need to actually show your client, how it's going to fit in the overall rendering. For me, I would like to use a tighter image, and the reason why is because you have all this empty spacing. Okay, this is telling me that this space is much larger than the 30 feet by 40 foot dimension that was added to the floor grid. So I want to make sure that, again, I'm picking the appropriate image to help me communicate what I've created for my client. All right, so I'm pretty satisfied with those images created. You can easily send them to your client. Let's take a look at them one more time. Under View Previous Renderings, there's my white space image. Here's the non-scaled image. And then you can see the scaled image. And that actually looks pretty good to me. That to me actually communicates much better. And again, I'm pretty satisfied with that. So this is the image that I'll probably use for my client. Okay, let's go into the second part of this review. So now what we want to do is we want to create an environment using the augmented reality feature that is included in your kits on the iPad. First off, again, these are the 5 steps to photo bliss. All right, first we need to analyze the space. So what I mean by analyzing the space is determining what I need to do in order to get the best picture possible for the layout that I've created. All right. So I'd be looking at objects that I can remove, some features that, let's say, if the TV needs to remain, then we can keep that there. If these items need to be moved, then let's move them. Again, any other kind of heavy object, you're probably going to want to remain in the space, but you also want to make sure that the length and width of the space is going to accommodate the layout that you've created. So that's another important thing that you need to look out for. Again, removal of any light, loose items, because you don't want to spend the entire day just moving objects. And then what you want to do is, once you have the space in the viewer or on the screen of your iPad, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you align it with something architectural of the actual space itself. This way you can align the perspective properly and add the furniture properly. Okay, and I'll show you what I mean by that. And then you might want to do some kind of cleanup, such as a removal of any larger furniture items that can't be easily removed. And then you could use some of the features that we have, like object removal or floor removal. And lastly, you want to adjust your scene accordingly. Okay, so you're going to see that once I place the actual furniture into the scene, there may be remnants of the furniture that sits in the space. But the idea, again, is creating a graphical image that best represents, regardless of what's in the space, that best represents what you're trying to communicate to your client. All right, everything is about the communication to your client and what the furniture is going to look like so that you can easily sell that furniture to your client. All right, so let's go ahead and open up a project. I like this one here. Has quite a few things that I can definitely use in the space. Love the KOE catalog stuff. Let's finish off this spec here. And let's specify this quickly. All right. Okay. So I'm down with the picture here. What I'm going to do is, doesn't matter which way I position it, because what we want to do is we're going to use the augmented reality feature in order to render this layout within a space. So we're going to go into include environment. This time we're going to go ahead and we're going to click on, we're going to click on new photo. And what you need to do is you need to bring yourself to the space. And again, this is where the first step is analyzing the space. You'll need to know how far of a distance you need to be at in order to take the proper picture. Okay. So I have a quick little opening space here, and you can see, I mean, this is a controlled space because we just threw in the furniture just to show you the example. So the idea is I'm going to take a picture of this space, and what I'm doing is I'm holding my iPad roughly about 5 feet off the finished floor with arms slightly bent out, iPad sort of forward, and again, if you're tilted, the iPad will tell you to straighten out. Okay. What I'm trying to capture here as well is I'm trying to capture everything from a bit of the floor to the actual ceiling. So I have the possibility of scaling this accordingly. Okay. So once I'm satisfied with the actual space I want to take, I want to make sure that I maintain a good position on the iPad. And then I'm going to go ahead and try to be as still as possible, and I'm going to take that photo. All right, so there's my photo. So you can see there's quite a bit of things here I got to do. I mean, I could have easily removed most of this furniture, but again, what I wanted to show you is what you can do to delete the furniture without having to do anything. So first option is being able to remove some of the items. So as an example, I want to show you what the object removal does. So we're going to go ahead into object removal. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place my finger on the screen, and then I'm going to drag it and I'm going to circle around this particular chair. Okay, and then I'm going to make sure that I'm going to bring my finger back to where I started to connect the line that I've created in order to do an object removal. So let's start here. Okay, and you can see once I've highlighted the object, I can still go in and I can just clean up any space just to make sure that I'm covering everything. Once I've highlighted that space, I'm going to go ahead and tap on Done. And what Kits begins to do is it begins to pull the pixels in the actual photo, and it starts to map those pixels back into the selection box that I've just created. Okay, so you can see here that even though I can still see a bit of a mess, it's actually cleaned it up quite nicely for me to place furniture in that space. However, I can see that I still have more furniture that I want to remove, so I want to remove that. I'm going to go ahead and use the floor erase. Okay, now this is the erase feature that I normally recommend using. It's the one that I always use. To be honest with you, I rarely use the object removal, and that's because whenever we're taking pictures of spaces, there's much more than just one single item that's in our way. Usually, there's quite a bit that we have to actually remove. So this is the reason why I use the floor erase. Okay. So when you first select the feature, it asks you to select the swatch on the actual floor. Okay. Now I can see here that it's a bit of a yellow patch here, and we have more of a natural light patch there. What I want to do is I don't want to pick up a patch that's too light, too yellow, too dark. I want to just picture something that's bright enough that'll allow me to create a nice clean look of the actual space. And you can see wherever I drag the window at the top left corner of my screen, I can see what that swatch looks like. Right? Luckily enough, the carpet flooring here is terrible, so blending it is quite easy. But you'll find, actually, with most commercial carpeting, it is quite easy to blend. You'll have some issues when you go into hardwoods. Concretes are nice and easy to do. But here you can see what all I'm trying to do is I'm trying to replicate the floor in some way, so that when I place the furniture in there, what we're after is we're after the carpet removing any of the objects that are in my scene. Okay, so right now I'm satisfied with this swatch. I'm going to go ahead and tap on Next. I'm now given this marquee box and this selection window. So basically, all I need to do is I need to position the white squares, or what we like to do is call them nodes, along my picture. If I need more of those square nodes, all I have to do is double tap on the box or selection window line. That will allow me to add another node. And then I'm just going to stretch it and place it accordingly. And you can see where I'm actually dragging my finger at the top left corner of my screen. I'm getting a nice zoom window to help me be a little bit more precise of where I want to place that. Okay. Anything that needs to remain in the scene, such as additional furniture, I'm going to make sure that we leave. So I'm going to circle around these items. And let's just clean that up there. And I'm going to just try to come in as tight as possible without getting too close. And there we go. Okay, so right now what I'm telling Kits is I need you to erase anything that's caught within this red selection area, and you're going to use that swatch that I initially selected. So we're going to go ahead and tap on Done, and then Kits begins to do its magic. And there you have it. So again, as I mentioned to you before, the carpet is terrible. So whenever we do this this feature, it kind of makes it look similar to the original pattern. I'm pretty satisfied with this. It's now erased the items that I needed it to erase, even though I have a bit of this graphic issue here. The idea is that the furniture that I'm going to place in the scene is going to be able to cover any graphic issue. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and tap on Use before I even do a calibrate. There's my furniture. And again, what I'm going to do is go into my plan view first, and I'm going to position this accordingly. There we go. We can even place it to a corner, go back into the plan view, and now what I'm going to do is double tap select, make sure all my items are grouped. I'm going to now delete them, and let's fix the perspective. Okay, let's bring it back in. And there you have it. So you can see how that actually fits along the space. I was able to cover the old graphic that was there. I'm pretty happy with this. Let's turn off the floor grid just to take a look at what it looks like without the floor grid in the space. And everything looks okay to me. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and HD render this. And there's my second image using augmented reality. Now, we're going to go through the same process, except we don't need to remove the floor. But what I want to do at this moment is I want to calibrate it accordingly. Okay. Save that to the photo library, and let's go back. All right, I'm going to go back to include environment. We're going to tap on the photo that we've taken, and this time we're going to calibrate. So what I do know is with any given architecture, you have some standards. For instance, this floor sill here is a standard 36 inches high from the finished floor. So what I can do is I can measure 3 feet to the windowsill. Okay, if you have a doorway, then you know that's going to be 7 foot. If you have some storage units, let's say from a contract furniture vendor, then you know that there are standard heights for a lot of those. So what you need to do is just if you don't have a measuring tape, you just want to make sure that you pay attention to what's around you so that you can actually use as a quick way to scale your scene. So again, here we're going to first select 3 feet. Okay, it doesn't matter what order you actually do these features. As long as you have the proper parameters in, you'll be fine. Okay, I've now placed my 3D measuring tape, and I'm now aligned it accordingly. Let's tap on Done. Now let's tap on Use. You can see how much smaller it's actually created that space. And just to give you an idea of the scale, let's quickly just turn on that floor grid floor. Okay, I want to make sure that I am aligned again. Okay, remember what we said is from the floor to the sill is 3 feet. Let's bring in the furniture. You can see the relative scale of the actual work surfaces, which are probably about 29 inches. And then you can see the additional space that you have of the wall, which pretty much brings it to about 36 inches. If I drag it to the other desk on the other side, again, you can see how close of a scale it is to that other desk. So you can see that what we're dealing with here are literally almost precise variables to really bring in your furniture to scale into the scene. Okay, I'm going to position it again as I did before. Need to go into plan view quickly, and need to make a quick adjustment here. Nope. remove that. And now let's position the floor grid according to the space. And now we can make any adjustments we need to. Okay, now this you can see looks so much better than the last one. I don't necessarily have that really tight space between these two desks, and that's because I've now properly aligned my image and scale to the scale of the actual space itself. Again, we can turn off that floor grid, and now we can create that quick rendering. All right, we're nearly done here. We got one more feature to go through, and that's being able to use a previous project. And there you go. I mean, that's pretty good in terms of using the augmented reality feature and being able to place the furniture that you're creating for your client in the actual space that it's going to be in. Okay. All right. So the feature of being able to use past projects is actually quite important, because if you understand that you can access photos, previously taken photos on the iPad through the Kits app, then you know that if you take multiple pictures of a client space, you'll be able to refer back to them. Okay, the only thing is those pictures need to remain in a project of some sort. So if I needed a picture for one particular space, I'm just going to create any kind of project, and then I'm just going to rename it, let's say Kits 1. And I'm going to take a picture of that client space, and then I'm going to save that project. And the reason why is because now when I'm creating the project, and the idea again is if you can't close that project immediately, let's say it's a larger project that requires multiple layouts for different spaces, then I can take a picture of each individual space and save it in its own project, so that when I'm back in the office and I'm creating the layouts for that space, I can refer back to those pictures because I can use the projects previously feature. So here I'm going to go ahead into HD Render, include environment. I'm going to go ahead and tap on the projects folder below. And now you're going to see every single project that I've created in a client space. Okay, that will also show you all the different projects that have been created even using the sample environments. All right, so what I want to do is I want to find an appropriate space. Let's go tap on this one here. Let's now take a look at the space. I can see everything that's in it. Now I can also see that, you know, there's quite a few obstructions that are in this space. If I want, I can even see the original image. So let's go and take a look at the original image. And you can see what's actually in that space itself. So let's say I need to place that same furniture in the space here. What I'm going to do, again, if I follow those same rules, I'm going to make sure that my client space or the image that I've taken is going to be able to accommodate the furniture. I can quickly bring it in, and let's quickly verify that. So it looks like, you know, even though there's going to be other obstructions in the way, it looks like I can fit the furniture in here. I haven't even scaled it yet. So I'm going to go back into include environment. We're going to select this space. Again, we're going to do a quick floor removal. And this one's going to be a little bit more difficult because you can see here that there is quite a static pattern, and it's going to be hard to replicate that pattern. Usually what I like to do is if I need to kind of copy a pattern or repeat, if you look at the zoom window at the top left corner, what I'm doing is I'm positioning my window to have the center of the pattern in the center of my zoom window. Okay, so this way when it replicates, I can sort of copy the same kind of movement. It doesn't necessarily work for all patterns, but you know, sometimes it does the trick. Okay, now the cool thing is Kits will recognize the selection area that you've already created. So what it's going to do is it's also going to use that selection area However, I want to make a quick fix here because I don't necessarily want to race over too much of that door. And let's try to get that straight. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and tap on done. Okay, so let's see what happens. Now, 100% of the time, or should I say 80% of the time to 90% of the time, you'll mostly find spaces like this that you'll have to deal with, where it's going to be virtually impossible to clean out the space. I mean, what you can do is try to remove some of the loose furniture, like this stuff here, maybe some stuff around the door, so that you can have a cleaner image. But again, remember the idea is to being able to replicate the client space and being able to show them what the furniture is going to look like once it's in a cleared space. You can see the pattern of the actual floor is pretty close, and you can see the method that I use kind of captures that a little bit. So I'm pretty satisfied with the image that I've taken. Now let's calibrate the space. So I can safely assume that these doors are quite large because I can see they're from floor to ceiling, and that hits a ceiling height. But again, here, again, I can say this is a common height. We're going to say that's 36 inches from the actual finished floor to the top of the windowsill. Okay. So let's calibrate. Let's go and find 3 feet. Let's bring in that measuring tape. And now we're going to place the actual measuring tape accordingly to the perspective. Let's scale it down. There we go. Let's tap on done. Scale's been made. Let's tap on use. There's my image. And then you can see what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to position it so that I can sort of hide the remaining graphic that's in the space. Okay, so it looks like I won't be able to do it that way. So let's flip it around one more time. And it looks like that I can possibly do a little bit better in this view. So I'm going to turn on the floor grid. Again, my furniture is selected. Let's remove it. And what we might have to do at this moment is now adjust the actual furniture. And regardless of the actual space, or regardless of the actual floor grid that we've changed, all I need to do is make sure that it's aligned along the border of the floor grid so that I know when I position my furniture, I know exactly how it's going to appear in the space. Now, you might want to consider things. For instance, we have this unit here, which needs an axis. So you'll need to make sure that you have at least 4 feet of space in case this is going to go against a wall. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that you don't obstruct it by placing a wall directly on it with some of the actual or how the placement of the actual furniture. Let's go back to photo view, and now we're going to remove that. Let's align it. That perspective looks pretty good to me. Let's tap on undo, and now let's just adjust it accordingly. Okay, even if I pull it away from the space, that might do the trick. And now let's turn off that floor grid. And there we go. Let's take a quick rendering of that. And you can see, even though I have some graphic obstructions that are within that space, I've done enough to be able to place that furniture into the space and scale it accordingly for my client to understand that it's actually going to fit and it's going to do well within that space. And look how cool that image looks. Okay, I'm going to save it. And now I can go ahead and create all the documents I need to close the sale with my client. All right, and that's pretty much it. We've covered what you need to do in order to get a proper environment photo into your scene, and we are able to use all the different features from using the samples, using the augmented reality, and also using some previously taken photos. All right, so what did we learn today? We learned that there are 5 steps to photo bliss. You need to analyze the space. You need to understand photography 101. You need to clean up the space, scale it, and then adjust your layout. All right. Now, if you're unable to take a photo of your current space, you can always access our sample environments, or you can build a quick replica using some of the other features like the KOE catalog, which would be for another webinar. And lastly, not all sites will be suitable for an image. So what you want to do is you want to practice how you use this feature in various ways with using various spaces. So you could really try taking photos of any space and see what you need to do in order to get the photo in there. All right. So first thing is I want to thank all those people that joined my webinar today, as well as joining every Wednesday. We really couldn't do what we do without the support of our community, so thank you so much. Don't forget, we're always looking for your submissions to becoming our next KITS collaborator. What we'll do is we'll showcase your project on our Knowledge Center. All you have to do is contact us with a quote about kits, preferably your selfie with kits in it. And then what we'll do is we'll reward you with a Starbucks e-gift card of up to $25. What should you include in that quote? Well, you can include anything like why you love kits, or even how kits helped you close your current sale. All right? It's really that easy. All you have to do is contact us, and we'll get you all set up to being our collaborator. Now, don't forget, you can also sign up for our free basic training webinar on April 12th. So look out for any upcoming news and announcement via email or by visiting our Knowledge Center and tapping on our resource tab. All right. In case you need to contact us, our technical support team is waiting for your questions. So feel free to contact us anytime you want with any questions that you may have. You can also reach myself if you think it's a question that may require some kind of elaboration. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for attending today's webinar. I hope to see you guys back right here next week for Webinar Wednesday. Bye, everyone.